Welcome to Tools for Time Traveling, the podcast equipping creators to build the future today. Because the future isn't something that just happens to you, it's built by creators of all stripes.
Every episode, we'll talk to a creative industry expert to get a behind the curtains look at the past and present of our creative industries, so you can gain that unfair advantage as you build out the future of your career. This season, we're focusing on music creators and providing strategic tools that help them navigate this often disrupted industry as they take control of their future.
All right, now let's jump into the episode.
It is literally the social experience of going to a game and like hanging out with people and like people watching and all the stuff that you don't think about when you buy a ticket of like, I want to see a Hawks game. It's like, yeah, but you're actually buying all these random things and experiences that you're not talking about. Concerts for me are more that than anything else, because a concert, you are going to be around like-minded people and kind of get energy from them. I do think it's what's happening on stage, but like a lot of it is like, you want to go be with your people.
You're hearing from Mike Walbert, VP of Experience at Rock the Bells. That's an entertainment company that was founded by LL Cool J, and it's all about classic hip hop, how to relive those experiences or the merch that's around it and just really like making that an engaging experience for everyone.
Yeah.
Mike previously served as the executive director at A3C. It was a festival. He took it from like a one-day concert to this multi-day, multimedia experience.
A3C, baby, stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really the reason we wanted to talk to Mike, besides the fact that Mike is just like a homie, Desmond and I both worked with Mike, back in the day, and he was really sort of like our really a catalyst for both of us to get involved into this Atlanta music scene. But it's really that expertise in creating these live moments, live experiences that made us want to talk to him. In our last conversation with D-Mac Guidry, shout out Dad, he emphasized the importance of not just the music, but everything surrounding the music. And so we thought a great person to talk to would be Mike. So he can guide us through, live experiences and how the pandemic sort of represents really a massive inflection point. So we had a conversation with Mike about just that, and hopefully he can help guide us through that discussion.
Yeah, so the conversation that we had with Mike, it covers, a lot of ground. We went from emerging technologies to, live music, even a little bit of psychology was mixed in there. And then we closed things out with an exercise in creative foresight called the Change Paths Tool. It's a method for understanding the changes you need to make today so that you can arrive at your preferred vision or your preferred future of what you want for your career, your line of business, your product, whatever that happens to be. And just to kind of give a bigger like scene setting, we're still in that kind of context building part of the conversation that we're having, with this podcast around the future of music.
Yeah, so with that being said, let's jump in. Welcome back to Tools for Time Traveling, the podcast equipping creatives to build the future today. I'm Gavin, creative director, storyteller, content creator. What up, Des?
Multi-hyphenate, all those things. Hey. And I'm Desmond, a creative futurist, strategic foresight practitioner, all of those things.
Dope. And, the point of this podcast and the broader experiment is to really democratize the concept of futurism and strategic foresight. Before we get in too deep into each episode and, this episode specifically talking about live music and experiences, we want to just remind everyone listening that we're all futurists. And as an example of that, I want to focus on Tyler Mitchell, who is not a futurist. He's not a strategic foresight thinker. He's not a fancy consultant. He's a photographer and filmmaker. In fact, he's the first black photographer to shoot the cover of Vogue. I'm sure y'all have probably seen the images, those idyllic images of Beyonce from a few years ago. And he's really broken through because of the way that he showcases black people, black joy, black love. It's something that is not really seen in his industry as much. When we're talking about photography and fine art and all of that good stuff, even fashion. And so, but the way that he arrived to this style and to this subject matter is actually pretty futuristic. A famous quote of his is, I feel an urgency to visualize black people as free, expressive, effortless, and sensitive. I aim to visualize what a black utopia looks like or could look like. People say utopia is never achievable, but I love the possibility that photography brings. It allows me to dream and make that dream become very real. So, you know, when we talk about the ways that he depicts things that, you know, aren't available currently to the whole black community, you know, just playing outside, jumping on trampolines, eating ice cream, you know, holding hands, you know, in public, and sort of just being free and able to enjoy that. You know, his picturing of that through his photography, that's what futurism is. Just the ability to reach into the near future and make those things seem tangible and within grasp.
Yeah. That's always a good thing, man. It's like a constant trope where you're looking at, like, you know, sci-fi stuff, and like there's so little representation of black people or people of color in these images. So like any which way we could get it, where we're like envisioning a future and envisioning like our joy, our place, our agency to shape that is always key. Whether that's, you know, movies, books, or, you know, like what Tyler Mitchell has done. And I remember you were telling me before about this like live experience that you got to go to, like with his work. Like, you know, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I was actually able to go to his exhibition, I Can Make You Feel Good, which was like one of his first big exhibitions at the ICP in New York. And man, it was such a great experience, especially with what we're talking about today, and just talking about how you create experiences and storytelling around content. You know, he had his photo show, but this was no ordinary photo show. It was a true experience. Like, you walked through all of these like laundry lines, and his photography was printed on, you know, clothing and blankets and sheets and things like that. You sort of like walk through this alley, then you go to sort of like this park where you can lay on the ground like a picnic and look up and see like a film that he made. So it's really just about like that experience. It was really transported me into into his world, with his images, which was pretty incredible.
Wow. Yeah, that is a perfect segue into what we're here to talk about today, and what we chatted with Mike about, which is like just the power of the live event, and particularly as relates to music today. Yeah. So we'll let Mike, you know, kick it off, and you know, we asked him directly, like, kind of, it's so easy to like just engage with everything digitally. So we just asked him, like, why is it even relevant? Like, why do live events matter?
Events is like storytelling. I think like you always try to like, an experience is the why, you know, the why, the what. But the why is really important for me on events and experiences. Experiences is a place where like I think I had the toolkit to kind of do it. Like I can't make music, right? I'm not musical. I could be in a room like that sounds good and that doesn't sound good. But for experiences, I could kind of do the whole thing. I can't build a stage, but I can say, hey, I'll build a stage like this, and I want these artists performing, and I want the venue to look like this, and I could find people to paint those pictures. So. Yeah, man, it's just where the rubber meets the road. I also, for music industry alone, like I realized this very on. People that can move bodies were powerful. Like getting people, like an artist that can't sell out a venue of 500 people, you know, maybe nowadays is different because of social media, but back then it's like, if you could sell tickets and you could move people, it's really powerful. So I always thought like, not in like this like must have power, but like I just thought like, that was where the rubber meets the road in the entertainment business, is the actual entertainment side of it. Is like, that's where the artists need to be on stage. That's where like brands need to play in. And I just felt like that was kind of the center of everything. And I just could bring value too, because I think I just kind of felt at home there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I really like what he had to say about events being storytelling and the why.
Right.
You know, like people
Right.
focus
Yeah.
so much on the what, like the music and even the who, like who's recording the music. But what about the why? And just being able to see people and being able to move bodies and why that's powerful. You're able to see why people connect with a certain song. And it gives you the ability to create even more engagement around it. And I think it makes even more sense when you think about how music comes to life.
So it's interesting how that contrasts with like, hip hop being like something that often like the genesis, it could start off like in a bedroom, it could just start off like in somebody's closet, and it's there's such a wide gap between like rocking a stage and then like where it starts off.
I've told this story many times over the years, but hip hop is a recorded music. Meaning like it is music that's made in the studio. You're smoking, you're drinking, you're having fun with your friends, and it sounds amazing in the studio. It doesn't always translate to a stage, and a lot of artists don't focus on their craft. Rock music is really good live. I mean, but the reason is because these aren't 5 people like, yo, let's get in the studio and record an album. They played that song hundreds of times in their garage, live, and typically it's not the Beatles, but this is like your garage band, and they just worked on a craft of live music. And then they said, hey, this song, people like this song a lot, it sounds great live, let's now go cut that record. But think about that, right? Like how those musics come to life. One started on stage. We're gonna play it in front of people and see what they think, and we're gonna play and play and play until we sound better, and when it sounds great and we know the audience likes it, then we're gonna cut that record. It's gonna make the album. Studio music is like, is Lil Wayne. You just live in the studio and you make so many records that a few of them are going to be really good. So I look at that dichotomy of like, people are like, oh man, the Rolling Stones are still touring. I'm like, yeah, the Rolling Stones are that's a live band performance. Their recorded music is like them trying to translate that into a record.
Yeah. So I've really never thought about it this way before, where different genres have different sort of like genesis of creation. Hip hop, maybe even like EDM, R&B. Like a lot of these are like recorded musics, whereas like rock music and even jazz is built off of the live experience. And because of that, I do feel like maybe there's a little bit more longevity when you do create music in a way that you're building it for, okay, what's moving bodies, what do people like, and then we select the music that way rather than selecting it on your own, and then it's I think it's harder to retrofit an experience to it after, even though Kanye is able to do it and things like that. But I do think there is something to say for the longevity of those genres that are really born in the live experience.
But something that's really interesting about that is like, even though hip hop is born in the studio, I think the ones that really know what they're doing and the ones that really like have that bigger vision, they will immediately take it to the club. Whether it's like a strip club and like seeing how it's moving bodies there, or even like I remember hearing about like Outkast when they were making Stankonia, like they were in the clubs in Europe when they were touring, and they were hearing like drum and bass and like just different like styles of music there, and then they were like starting to record here, and then they would just like go to the club like immediately. Or like Soulja Boy, I remember he talked about it too, like he'll record a song and then that same night he'll hit the club and just play it and see how people react to it. So again, like even if it's born in the studio, as early in the process as possible, that's the key. And as we're thinking about this, it's really starting to make me wonder if the future of music will be shaped even more by the new ways we consume it, right? So first, everyone was listening to live music. Like that was just how you experienced it. And then eventually we started recording it and putting on records, CDs, digital files or whatever. But like, what if the new way that we experience it is like everyone experiences it being streaming music? How would that change the way it's made? Or if everyone is experiencing it through like a virtual reality experience, how would that change the way that we make music? Is it more of the like kind of surround sound effects that are going into it? I'm very curious on how that shapes the future of music.
Wait, are you Desmond Dickerson talking about like Web3 and metaverse? The skeptic? Desmond Web3 skeptic Dickerson? Is that what we're doing?
I might be a skeptic, man, but it's like, hey, no one can stop the emergence of technologies, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So maybe it becomes a thing, maybe it doesn't. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it. I don't think they're gonna make fetch happen with all this stuff. Exactly. You know, but who knows? And it's always important to be, just on the vanguard, asking really smart people about how these things are playing out. And that's what we did, So with all these emerging technologies, why not ask our guests? So we talked to Mike about the most futuristic thing that he's observing in music.
And I'm still like, I'm trying to just soak it up right now because I think like there's a little bit of a gold rush and everyone's trying to get in on it and get, make that splashy headline. But like making the right first step is important. And I think like, trying to chase that like quick buck is what everyone's doing right now. Yeah, if you're talking about futuristic, performing in Fortnite, Travis Scott, I think kind of how people are doing, NFT, like how you're monetizing and releasing records. I think Nas is like releasing an album through NFT to give people ownership. But I think that's like, I really like, I became a student of that space because I think there's something really interesting with music ownership and monetization and trying to music is commoditized right now, right? Like we don't think of it as a good that's worth any money. It's just something that lives in our pocket. Like you release music, I'm not paying you for it because why would I pay you for music? It's on my app. So how do you bring value back to music? And I think there's like really interesting ways of doing that with like the NFT space or ownership or making music valuable and tangible again.
And I think there's something to say, even though Mike is not a Web3 tech expert, just his in-depth knowledge of live experiences and events makes him like invaluable to this discussion,
Yeah.
And the thing that frustrates me about like Web3 and the metaverse and things like that is that it's just built around this gold rush, and like all of most of the headlines you see around it are about, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna make X amount of money via this coin, via this crypto or blockchain technology, or I'm gonna sell these NFTs. Like it's just around making money, and that is what sort of turns me off. I think that the like ability in Web3 potentially is again around ownership, and just creating community around content. And it's just like, everybody just wants to get rich off of this, and like, who said anything about getting rich? Like, no one said that has to be what Web3 is. I think it's more important when you think about, can this be a way that we bring value back to recorded music?
Yeah, so with everything that gets digitized in this new like way that we're experiencing music, it's just so easy to lose sight of the tangible value and those experiences, like we were talking about before, like that energy to move bodies.
Yeah, and we discussed it in our previous conversation. But when music is so easily accessible, like I've just got this music like on my phone, and you're making it really easily as well. It's really easy to commoditize something that way. So I guess the question now is, can tangible experiences be what brings value back to music? Mike made a post actually about this about a year ago, which is really sort of what piqued our interest in wanting to talk to him. But it was around the beginning of the pandemic. Everybody's trying to figure out, where are we going from here? And Mike, of course, with his experience of live, was talking a bit about this. So what he said is, the music industry has had to move online real quick. However, shows, concerts, festivals are more than just watching live music. They provide a sense of belonging, hanging with friends, getting out, drinking, dancing, and a lot more. He has no doubt that we'll be back to music venues again, but it's going to be a while, and the live streaming experience will undoubtedly be more integrated and integral than ever. So with that said, the online experience needs to get better. You can't just point the camera and hit record. Right. I believe that it involves viewer participation, active engagement, gaming, etc. So, I think even just that little bit of what he's stressing as important for building experiences around music, it sort of just helps us start to plot a way forward.
What I think saw happen over the last year was fatigue. There was a lot of people that just like saw the same show, one camera pointing or two cameras pointing, and again, I think what I said in that post stands true, which is like you can't replace a live experience or a live anything. Like even like Oculus, I look at Oculus headset as like going to a Hawks game or something like that, and I think like, oh, I can watch a Hawks game from the front row seat. That's amazing. But I can't laugh with my friend. I can't I can't. It is literally the social experience of going to a game and like hanging out with people and like people watching and all the stuff that you don't think about when you buy a ticket of like, I want to see a Hawks game. It's like, yeah, but you're actually buying all these random things and experiences that you're not talking about. Concerts for me are more that than anything else, because a concert, you are going to be around like-minded people and kind of get energy from them. I do think it's what's happening on stage, but like a lot of it is like, you want to go be with your people and you show up and you're like, I know who the people are going to be because like that artist has a brand and that brand has a community. You can't replace. I mean, like that's so I think there are some tech solves that can happen online, which is like if you're watching the live concert, there needs to be a live feed where everyone can talk to each other. Like there needs to be integration of like the artists. So when they're performing for an online audience, they need to address an online audience. And if they're just addressing the crowd there, then they've missed something. So I think we need to see a little bit more interaction where it's like you're not just like staring at a screen like this, but you're actually like playing along with it or helping dictate or feature on. Maybe there's even a video behind the person and the audience is playing with the video and like they're like picking and moving stuff around. Like that could be fun. So it's interaction for me. It's just engagement. It's live engagement. It's live interaction. It's gamification. I mean, let's say we're all playing the quiz at the end of the game, and then the artist reads like, "Hey, these 5 people are gonna fly to LA to hang out with me for a day because y'all all won." Like, yeah, I'm gonna sign up for that. There's so much cool stuff, man. And tech has solved a lot of it. It's just finding the right promoter, meaning the person who put up money, finding the right brand who's probably gonna help underwrite it, and then finding the right artist. But those 3 things really, it takes like an executive director to bring all that together.
Man, Mike gave us a ton of insight here, just addressing like what's been going on in the pandemic era with live events, and then even just like that glimpse of like what's ahead, like what's the future of live music, right? Yeah. So I think this is a really good point, a good jumping off or launching pad for us to talk more about the Change Paths Futurist tool.
And please, Desmond, break it down for us. What is this tool? How do we use it? And I think it more importantly just gives sort of our viewers and our listeners a picture of what it looks like.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so a Change Paths tool, it's a data-driven narrative exploring different paths and the key decision points that move you toward possible future innovations, right? So you like, at the end, like you have this big circle, this big, block, whatever, of like, this is the future. This is my preferred, like ideal future that I'm imagining for my business, for my career, for my product, whatever it is, right? Okay. And then there's like a path that leads to that with like certain points along that path that are key inflection points that are really going to help you to move forward. And the time to use this is when you're trying to address the gap between what your vision is and the action to get there. And it really helps you to outline some tangible steps to achieve your innovative idea. Okay,
cool. So we've got like a big circle on the right that's where we're trying to get to. And then we need to plot points along the path to sort of like, okay, this is what we need to get there.
Exactly.
Okay, bet. Well, yeah, let's jump into it then.
Cool. Yeah, so to get everything started off with this, of course, the first thing we did was ask Mike, what's your ultimate vision for live music experiences?
So it could be like, that's what I think. These things can't be one-offs to me. That's what I'm saying. Like you got to start like building and growing, and it can't be, let's just try it and see, because some of those shows might go well, some of them might not go well, and you might learn from a few. So like to me, like building a custom built stage studio that allowed for the technology to flourish, and then booking it really well, and then that becoming like, you know, its own living brand, its own being, like living being thing. Like if Versus had happened once, it wouldn't be a thing. The Versus is huge because it's not episodic in that it happens monthly, but it's episodic in that it continues to happen. The conversation is like, you're just kind of part of that community now.
So for the future of live experiences, Mike envisions a cross between like American Bandstand, like Versus, a little bit of that TV show The Cube thrown in. So, you know, there's a platform. That means there would be some sort of platform that has wide distribution. I don't know if it's TV or it's, you know, online or wherever. Artists can perform their music for virtual audiences and get direct feedback from the show attendees. So I don't think anything exists right now. So it's certainly futuristic, and I don't even have the words. I don't even know what to call that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the important parts of what he's saying are like interactive and tangible. So I think like what we should put in this big circle on the right is interactive, tangible experiences, and then we can figure out how we sort of like make it to that point.
Okay. So I mean, we're working through his vision, but like when you hear that, like what do you think of? Like what are you imagining for yourself if you're in that type of experience?
Yeah, you know, I think you know, not to borrow too much from Mike, but you know, I think when we're talking about interactive and tangible, I think you not only need to engage people with like a concert and be like, how are you feeling, or what song, you know, blah blah blah, but like
Cleveland, what's up?
Yeah, exactly. Not just that, but like how about getting people to be able to like, you know, pick what songs you're gonna perform before you even go live, you know what I mean? Or allowing ways for monetization, you know. Can people buy merch while they're viewing digitally, you know? I think just trying to make it interactive and tangible. Can you send out, you know, for people who register or sign up to view your concert, can you send out some tangible things that go along with the experience? Just things like that could be cool too.
Like a STEM player?
Yeah, right.
No, that's good. Right? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, this is that's the promised land, right? And that's vastly different from anything that we're experiencing right now. And it can be overwhelming to try to just like jump right into that future state. Like, what would you even do if it was like, oh, next Friday, I need that whole experience?
Yeah.
Like, you know, we would be frozen just in like, what do I do? Obviously, there's some important steps along the way that will get us there, and all sorts of factors that can like slow down that process. Maybe there's like new trends that emerge or things that can speed up the progress, like, you know, maybe it's new technologies or whatever. So of course, we asked Mike what factors would help us accelerate toward this vision for the future of music experiences.
I do think it's like that one, someone throwing a boatload of money in it. Like a lot of this stuff is like really the right entrepreneur that's like, because when I say like the right artist and the right everything, is like, one, you got to build out the facility, the marketing aspect, but then you got to book it, and then you got to believe in it to where it's like, hey, this is not going to make money for this first 6 months, or it's going to take a year to recoup. So all those little steps are like pretty big investments. Like who has the time, energy, and thing, and this is what I think I mentioned this to Gavin earlier, but like a lot of these, maybe not, but you know, I think when we think about the future, and or even when I think about products that don't exist, I'm like, I used to be like, why don't these things exist? And now I realize like it really just takes that one person. Like it takes someone to say like, I know I need to dedicate my time on this. And that's another thing with like anything in the future is like, if anyone's like one toe in, then they're like, if they hit a speed bump, then they're out. So you really got to go all in on something. So something like this, where I say like, it's going to take the studio build out, the tech of it, the booking of it, and the investment. And what I mean by that is, you know, significant investment. Once you start doing this stuff and like you realize like, I'm not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm talking about millions of dollars, right? all the tech that comes into it. When I found out, like, I mean, even like stream festivals is a couple $100,000. Like, when I found that out, when people started hitting me up like, oh yeah, we want to stream A3C, I'm like, cool, let's do it. And they're like, well, to get the truck and all the cameras and all this stuff, it's gonna be like, you know, $250,000. I was like, that's like my festival, but you know, like that now, like I could throw a festival for that much. So, so maybe that's like a little bit of like the technology needs to help bring the cost down too, Des, is like, you know, the idea, like, you know, a little bit like even like microchip getting smaller, like some of this stuff just like the costs are still too high. Like, so like maybe there's just like some stuff that happens over the next 5 years, and that's tech stuff I don't really know the answers to.
All right. So as we're starting to like chart this path and plan our way forward, right? I think the first plot point would be like where we are now. So stuff like Versus, where it's like online and you know, it's like all at one set time, but there's like all sorts of engagement. People are like kind of enjoying this experience with one another. And then the next phase is what Mike was just hinting at here, where it's like you need a lot of money. You need someone who's going to invest in like, all right, I have this vision for this new experience no one's ever seen before, and I know it's going to take millions, but here we are. You know, and not just like that, you know, that vision or that money from that particular person, but like technology that's catching up. So I don't know if that's the like immersive, like metaverse type stuff, or there's other technology that we don't even quite know yet, but it seems like those are always like key ingredients. You've got to have the money, and you've got to have the technology that's pushing you forward as well.
Yeah. So, you know, when you're talking about technology and money, do you think that there's also, you know, to get us to the point, to this like tipping point, you know, where we're really going to be able to create these experiences, these virtual experiences in a consistent way? Do you think that it could be like technology advancing to a certain point that brings the cost down? So, you know, so like we need to get to a point where, you know, the ability to play in the space is more, you know, is more for everyone, or even a little bit more DIY, to get us to that point where everybody can do it. Similar to like how music is now, where, you know, people can just record on their laptops and things like that. Do we need to get to a point where technology makes that barrier to entry even lower?
Yeah. It's like, what's that? I think you were telling me about this concept of like the future mundane, right?
Yeah.
Where like you got to get to a point where like what seems futuristic and hard right now actually just becomes like the norm. Like this is regular, you know, like, you know, maybe 20 years ago, like the future was like, oh man, I've got this like this phone, this mobile device, and it has like all like my whole life is in here, and I can easily get it. I can watch movies on here and like video chat with my friends, just all in this small device. And like at the time, it was like, whoa, that's like crazy futuristic. And then by like 2010, it was just like, oh, you mean FaceTime? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Like we all have that. So yeah, I do think that like the technology does improve or expand to a certain standpoint to where it's not just the major label folks. Like it's the young kids that are like creative, that are in their garage, they're scrappy, and they got a new sound, and they're like, oh, and I also got a whole new way for you to experience this.
Yeah,
check me out.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, like let's say we're at that point where we do have technology that brings the cost down, so that more people can play in it. You know, how do artists then need to position themselves to get to even the next point?
I think experiment. I think there was some like independent artists that were like making a really good living on Twitch, but I do think it's like, and I think I mentioned this too. I don't know if you were on the call, but like the tipping, and I think like karaoke tipping and like micro tipping, and like just like again, it's really gamifying your live music. But I think there's a ton of stuff like that, like Patreon. Like there's other like payment platforms you can participate and practice in. I mean, I was a huge fan of like the rule of 1,000, of like, you know, if you have 1,000 fans that are paying $10 a year, you know, or $100 a year, you made $100,000 that year. So those would be considered super fans, but I think that's like a really cool concept for artists to wrap their head around. Is like not trying to take over the world on day one. You're like, how do I get to 1,000? Like really dope, like people that like really with me and like want to pay for my shit.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember hearing you like mention that like 1,000 fan concept like back in the SMKA days. So this is like 12, 13 years ago.
I mean, money hasn't changed, right? Like money, math still counts. I think also for artists, like, I mean, the artists making money are the ones that are adapting to new platforms and new technology, and then they're winning in those platforms. So like, I remember 2019, keynote speaker was Gary Vee, and he was just like, he probably spent half his speech talking about TikTok, but he wasn't talking about like I'm a fanboy. He was saying like there is a rabid user base. He was just like the growth of this networking platform. Like people are spending more time. I mean, he was really diving into the numbers, and he goes, and there isn't hip hop. And he was just talking to the audience, and he goes, this room right here, you guys should be dedicating your time to TikTok. And I'm not, people pontificate and talk tech and the future all the time, and they're not always right. Probably 90% of the room was like, man, this guy, whatever. I'm already dedicating so much time and energy to Twitter, and I'm dedicating so much time and energy to Facebook, and but the problem is, like, the funny thing is when you go in all in on these platforms too, is like TikTok could change their algorithm tomorrow and just fuck you up. And you saw it on Facebook, because people put a lot of time and energy into Facebook. Then they're like, nope, no more pages. You got to pay if you want to see your audience. And TikTok could do the same thing. Quite frankly, they probably will once they like reach a certain level, and their investors are gonna be like, all right, turn on the spigot. Now let's drain everybody. So it is tough. And so that's where, like, I think Patreons and things like that, where you're building direct to customer and like you own the data, there is I'm on the platform or endorsing a fan base, which Isaac Hayes is launching in Atlanta, is like own your audience and be paid per views and stuff like that, is like changing the way we think about social media and content creation. But I'm not gonna lie, it's tough out there for artists, man.
All right, so we've got like our launching point of where we are, and then we know the next ingredients. We need the technology, we need tons of money that's going to advance us as well. And then we start to get to the artist side of this as well, of like, them engaging with these new experiences, them being, innovative or experimental themselves. And I think, you can often look to like certain industries and how they're engaging with new technologies, and that always going to show you the path forward, right? So like whenever a new innovation emerges, there's always just like certain pockets that you can look at, and it's like, oh, okay, like this is going to be the new business model, right?
Yeah.
So I think that musicians can look to, and this is like, it might sound crazy, but like musicians can kind of look to like a OnlyFans, right? Because it's like typically like kind of like those vice industries, they're the ones that are like, oh, this is like, I think like VHS, when that first took off, like what really propelled VHS was like the porn industry, and like that they were putting a ton of money into it, and they were like figuring out like how to make it work, the distribution, all of that. So I think like, hey, what's going on with OnlyFans, and like how could that relate to the way that I'm presenting my content, whether it's the music or whatever other experience that my fans are getting out of me. Or you could even be looking at like, you think about like a strip club, right? And they got to the point where it's like, oh, we got QR codes now. So it's like, the spectacle of throwing the money is a little different now. You got like, the QR code, and you just send the money that way. Maybe there's like a back wall that has like splashes of money whenever, that's going down. So I just, I can kind of envision like how that might relate to what musicians are doing, or even like something a little bit more like unsexy, but like a karaoke bar, and thinking about like how everyone's like engaged, everyone's a part of it, but the music is the center of it. Like how could a musician like capture that engagement and interaction and participation, but then like center themselves as well.
Yeah, no, and I think even seeing what gamers are doing on Twitch, how they're utilizing that mixed with Discord, mixed with a bunch of other things, or how publishers are using Substack. There's ways to, I think the key word here is ownership. Like there's key ways to create these experiences in a way that you own them, and so you own what they look like, what they feel like, how people experience it, but then you also own it from like a monetary perspective as well, which is also important, when we're talking about tipping and different things like that. We need technologies that allow us to do that. And And then, you know, from there, with the ownership of these platforms, it's really about creating engaged communities on those platforms. Right. So, you know, we spoke with Mike a little bit about the law of 1,000, but, you know, basically, if you have 1,000 fans who are paying $10 a year, you know, I think obviously it's easy to pontificate around being a huge mega superstar. But
right.
if you really only have a community of 1,000 people, like who doesn't have 1,000 followers on a social media platform at this point, but they're paying $10 a year to your platform, or, you know, even $100 a year, you could, you know, be making $100,000 a year. And that's a way to sustain you as an artist. So, you know, having ownership and being able to bring your community to that platform that you own, I think is going to be a really important step as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as we're like moving toward our vision, right, for the future of live events, when everything seems to be falling in place, you've got the money, you've got the technology, you've got the pioneers that are like trying new things and all of that, like you still often just need that catalyst, like that thing that's going to be like an inflection point and really make it all like just come together.
Well, there's still like, I mean, I say this, like who like, I'm really curious on the numbers, like who's in there, like, because I just don't think there's been a huge buy-in on customers. And I think there's a tipping point. Yeah. Artists will show up once there's enough audience there. So like Fortnite has a huge community and a ton of gamers. But like there needs to be enough traffic to warrant like, so think about every social media platform ever. Like there's early adapters, then there's people who kind of like own it. But then there's like everyone's in there, and because like, but it hits a tipping point, which is like, now there's money to be made. I'm missing out on opportunities. So then it's kind of, it is literally it's the tipping point, right? It's where like it's reached enough mass exposure where like I'm now losing money by not being in there, and it almost is like it's probably like Econ 101, right? It's like the trouble of getting in there is worth the money I will make when I get in there. And I think right now a lot of people are like, the trouble it takes for me to get in there, I won't make enough money to equal that trouble, right? Like that's just like human nature. So a couple of things, like I don't think metaverse knowledge people have done a great job in like A/B stuff. Like I think if you know it, it's almost like a little bit of a club, like in that like how do you get in and what it is. This could be a fake bump where 5 years from now, no one's talking about metaverse. And I say that because, and that's happened before, right? Like there's like been like Second Life and all these like kind of moments. This could be another moment where 5 years from now, like no one's talking about this. And I say all this because I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze when you get in there right now. I don't know that, but I've heard like some people are like, this is very underwhelming. It's like, I'm talking to people I don't know, like how, like there's a lot of programming that needs to be done to make sure these experiences are kind of cool and fun and worth being in there. So like, I think there's a ton of energy and effort to build those experiences that are worth it. But one thing that trips me out, this is off topic, but like I watched like Mark Zuckerberg's like speech about it the other day where he's like flying around. It's like, I could have coffee in France and dinner in Lisbon. I'm like, mother. No, you can't. Like, your avatar can like, but like you're drinking like Starbucks at home, and like you're gonna eat like Papa John's. Like that's so like. I think right now we're selling a lot of false goods. Is what I'm saying. Like everyone's like, you could do all this stuff, but I'm like, like you're not replacing all that shit by any means, right? Now I do love a lot of stuff that it can offer, but I just don't think what the product is what people are selling right now. I just don't. You can go to a Snoop concert and like talk to him directly, and I'm sitting there like, so 25,000, everyone can go and just talk to Snoop, like he's talking to everybody, like individual. Like no, you're lying to us right now. Like everyone's selling us false goods right now.
So there you have it. That last catalyst, that last piece that Mike thinks is going to bring this all together is really just, the tipping point of enough fans, enough people, enough users on these platforms to make it valuable for the musicians and artists that are, presenting to them, and also just the business entities that are making it work as well. So in review, this is us walking through a change paths exercise, which is a way to help you envision what the future of your business or your product or whatever is, and then plot out the steps that will get there. So in this instance, we talked to Mike about, okay, what's the future of live music? The future is interactive and tangible experiences. How do we get there? We kind of starting off now. We've got a little bit of the online experiences, like Versus or something like that, where folks are engaging with one another as they're watching their favorite artists. And then moving it further, of course, it's going to take the investment dollars, the VCs that are throwing money at this, and the technology that just makes it cheaper or makes it more widespread so that everybody can start to experiment with it. From there, it takes experimental artists, folks that are really thinking through like, okay, here's a new way to present things. In the same way that 30-some years ago, it was the music video. Here's a new way for me to get my music out there. All right, now I've got this virtual, engaging, interactive thing. Like, how do I work through that and elevate that platform? As they're thinking through that, then they start to kind of look at other industries and see, how they're doing it, like how they're, taking advantage of emerging, engaging, and interactive technologies. And then that last piece is just making sure that the fans are actually there. There's enough people that are there that it's worth it for artists to get involved. It's worth it for brands to put money behind it.
And I think even to take that a step further, not to only focus on the artists, but also to just focus on the individual, right? Like focus on the people who are going to be a part of these, engaging in these new technologies, whether that's the fans or, the consumers, whatever that may be. I think that there also needs to be a little bit of education and ownership for that group of people as well, so all of these creator platforms, the current state of creator platforms is obviously focusing on the creators, making sure they know how to take the most out of the platform, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, all of these creator platforms have creator academies. I actually just helped build Instagram's creator academy. But
slight flex.
I don't do it for the applause,
for the accolades.
I think we also, if we're talking about people really being a part of these communities, there needs to be some education around there as well. So, what does a consumer academy look like? Are you supporting correctly? Are you, before you jump into this new platform, is your wallet set up in a way that you can tip the person who you're going to watch? Or, what are the do's and don'ts of just what are the rules for really supporting the content creation and experiences in this new world that we're going to be moving into?
No, that's great stuff. 'Cause I don't know, I don't even know how to be a fan in this new era.
Right? Yeah,
I'm just streaming the music, man. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
So hopefully, by us breaking down what this change paths tool is, again, that's the whole point of this podcast, this project that we're putting together, is really just equipping artists with these tools to time travel, to bring us to the future of what music can be and broadly what art can be.
Yeah, no, for sure. And hopefully people listening in, whoever they are, artists, musicians, creators, thinkers, whatever it may be, hopefully they can follow this line of thinking into new ways and new technologies. But I think even more than that, right? So putting the change path tool aside, as we're talking about the future and these different technologies, we also spoke with Mike a bit about empathy and mental health and just what role do these things have to play in that tipping point?
I think there's going to be some even that I think that report about mental health and women, body image, I think through Instagram or Facebook came out. I think that's actually more of an indicator of the future than metaverse right now, because I actually think that once a ton of these studies come out about what all these things are doing to people, I think we're going to be a little bit more deliberate about how we program technology to serve us to the betterment of our mental and physical health than to serve corporations to get all of our dollars and time. Yeah. But I think once people realize, not that people are selling stuff to you, because I don't fucking sell me everything I want. I don't care. But once people realize like the long-term impacts that has on you, like your self-esteem, your friendships, your relationships, and studies come out about that stuff, then we actually are going to have to take a look in the mirror and be like, all right, is this worth it? Like, is this connectivity and the entertainment, the 6 hours of, day some people are getting of entertainment, is that worth the social good? Are we better than we were before this?
So, and when we're talking about mental health and like creating things that provide for healthy engagement, and just thinking about what it means to be empathetic with technology, maybe that is a little bit more of what we need in these technologies to get us to that tipping point. Maybe enough people aren't going to opt into this because they're already a little bit burnt out on Web 2. They're burnt out on the on the social media and the comparison and things like that. What ways in Web 3 can we make technologies that account for that mental health and that empathy and that instilling confidence and instilling value back into people? Maybe that's more. And so instead of thinking about the cryptos and who's getting rich and, who's doing this and who's doing that, who is allowing for human flourishing and with these different Web3 technologies, that could be something that really moves us to the tipping point.
Yeah, absolutely. And even that, like when you think about like how like music engages people, it pumps you up, it's your mantra, it's your theme song when you're about to go to like a job interview or you're going to the big game or whatever it is, and I think that that's the key is, the music can have that impact, right? So like focusing on that aspect of the music and then just allowing that to translate to the virtual experience in a way that, as you said, it's not comparative. It's not me versus that person. It's like, like we're all in this like joyful experience together.
Totally.
I think that's what will pull people, especially young people that are looking for maybe an escape from all the doom and gloom. Like that is what will pull people in.
Yep. All right, you heard it here first, folks. If we're going to get to the future, got to be empathetic. All right.
Yeah.
Stop chasing the dollar. It's not about the quick buck.
Yeah, I like what you said about human flourishing. Like in the work that I do, like in my day job, like that's a big emphasis of just figuring out the future of work is all about flourishing. So it's like making sure that the social ties and social connections are there in the right way, making sure that people have the resources they need to do like their work and live their life like in a good way, and then just finding that perfect level of challenge to enter what is called like the flow state, where it's like, this is hard, this is challenging me, but like I'm growing and I'm getting better and I'm accomplishing something. And who has that like down pat is the video game industry. Like that is exactly what gaming is. It's all about like figuring out, all right, what is it that I need to do to like, uncover this new map or like reach this new level, reach this new stage. And they figured out like how to keep you in there. So it's not too easy to show like this is boring, but it's not so hard that you quit. And I think, we can just take notes from that as we're looking for like, how do we create new live music platforms? So as we're looking at the future of everything, video games, live music, all of that, being a futurist, there's always like a different strategy that you have around like spotting the next trend and figuring out like, oh, what do I need to be paying attention to that's giving me a signal about what's next? And that's, really the message that we want to share. There's always going to be, new things emerging, new ways of doing things, or new ways of doing the old things. So whether that is like the Web3 stuff or like streaming or these, new, tangible, interactive live platforms that we were chatting about earlier, like just, staying on the cutting edge and always learning about what's next is key.
Yeah.
So that's why we want to share this change paths, concept with you all today of like, Envision what you want for the future of your career, the future of your industry, and then plot out like every step of the way that's going to get you there. And that's just one of many futurist tools, and we hope to bring you a lot more as we go along this journey.
Yeah, well said. Very well said. Yeah, so thanks for being along this journey with us. Really excited to see not only where this journey goes that we're on right now, but also the tools that hopefully y'all can get from this. And really create some really interesting things too. So, onwards and upwards. Let's keep going into the future.
Absolutely.